Okay, please confirm if you can see the screen by raising your hand and using the Zoom feature. Okay, about 5 people have raised their hand. Thank you for that. So I believe now you can see the screen for the practical document. So as I said last week, we were introduced to Programming Practical 1 and the Microsoft Visual Studio environment. I also showed you how to create a new project, how to save it appropriately in a folder. And after you have saved it and you've finished working on it, you can go back to that folder and double click on the solution file. There is a solution file or .soln file that you can always use to open what you did previously. Okay, so there are many files you'll see, there are folders, but the single file that you need to open your previous solution is called a solution file. Okay, and you can always find that in the previous place where you saved your last project. Okay, so should I say that we're able to attend last week's session, then I'm sure that I believe that by now you understand what I'm talking about. So there's a project folder where it must have saved your solution file. If you were not able to attend, there's a video that has already been uploaded on Moodle, which you can always watch later to catch up on what was done in the previous week. All right, so having said that, let us begin or continue with today's tutorial or practical session, So to do this, I believe you've already opened Microsoft Visual Studio 2015 on one side of your computer. Let me try to split mine into two so that we can see side by side. Okay, let me try to do that. Okay, so I'm splitting the screen into two so that I don't always have to toggle between both windows. All right. There you go. Can you confirm that you can see both screens? That's the document on the left and Visual Studio on the right. Please confirm for me. Thank you, Tandazani. Thank you for confirming some gear. All right, so in this case, thank you for confirming. So in this case now we have the document on the left which contains the instructions, and then on the right we have the Microsoft Visual Studio IDE, which is the environment we'll be using. So let's go through some of these instructions. But before then, I would like to create a new project. So as you can see here on the landing page or the landing screen, you can see new project, start new project, or you can just go to file, you click on file, and then you also see new project. Okay. So let me click on this shortcut since it's already here. And then it's asking me to give. So remember, always make sure that the template you are using is Visual Basic, Windows Forms application, not C#. Do not select the Visual C# template. Well, the one we are working for now is the Visual Basic, okay, not Visual C#. So for now, select Visual Basic. Under Windows, select Windows Forms application. Change the name to what you remember. In this case, I can just, let me see if There is a name I can use. Okay, I'm just gonna call this practical 2. I'll prefer not to put spaces. That's just my choice. Practical. Okay, let me call it programming. Practical underscore 2. That's the name I've decided to give to this project that we are about to create for today's practical session. Okay, on your side, you can decide to give it any name that you prefer. Okay, as long as it reminds you of what that project contains. And in my case, it's going to save it in this location. I'm fine with that. It's going to save it in a folder called projects inside the Studio 2015 inside my documents folder on my computer. So I'm fine with that. If you want to change it, you click on browse and then you select a location of your choice. Okay, but I'm fine with this location. And you can leave the solution name as it is, practical underscore 2. And you click OK. And that should start the process of creating the project. Okay, now you have the project or interface showing in front. So I'm just going to give you a few seconds to do that if you're trying to do that. Okay, any questions, any issues? Okay, no questions yet. All well and good so far. So the next thing is, let's look at the instructions here. Before then, I believe you're already familiar with this interface from last week or from the previous practical session. On the left here, we have our toolbox, which has been pinned. And then on the right, bottom right here, you have the properties window, and you have the solution explorer at the top right here. So you have the form window in the center. Currently, we only have a form, and at the end of the day, we would be looking at some instructions on this document to be able to carry out today's practical activities. So let's talk about input and output. Input and output. So you can take input and output you can take input from a person or from a user using either a text box or an input box. Okay, using either a text box or an input box. And then an example of a text box is this you can see here. And an example of an input box is this that you can see here. So with either of these tools, you can take the input from a user. Whatever a user wants to input into a particular program can be obtained from them using any of these tools. Okay, so there are some times in your program that you want the user to supply a value or a number or a figure or whatever. Okay, so you can accept that input using a text box or you can use an input box. Okay, now for output, you can output information or like print information to the screen. Output, that's what displays now when the input has been processed. You can get the output or the result of the processing of your input. You can output using a text box as well, or a label, or you can also use a message box. Okay, I've already shown you what a text box looks like, which is right here. You can also use a label, which is, let me give an example of a label. Okay, something like this can be a label. Okay, and then a message box, which is what you see right here. You can use to display an output to pass information to the user. Okay, and then all these can be found or can be done using the VB codes. Sometimes we need the toolbox to pick out some items or controls or objects like the label, the text box. But for the message box, you have to instruct the VB code to display your message box by using some codes that we'll be talking about very shortly. So to create a text box, as I said, you are required to use the toolbox. Remember, the toolbox is right here on the interface. Okay, and the first instruction says create a label by finding it in the toolbox. So this is our window, our form window right here. Now the instruction says create a label by finding it in the toolbox. Left click it and drag it onto the form. In the previous practical session, I showed you how you could add different controls to the form, to the Windows form. So I showed you about 3 ways also. So one of the ways is to just drag onto the surface or double click or click on the control, then click on the surface. Okay, whichever way you have chosen as your best way, that's fine. But the idea here is to create a label by finding it in the toolbox and drag it onto the form. So I've done that, and as you can see, it automatically gives it a text showing label 1. I gave you an example. I also clarified the difference between the text property and the name property of a control. Okay, the text property is what is displayed, that you see, that is appearing on the object or the control, but the name property is the actual name that has been assigned to that control in this environment or in this class, in this case. Okay, so in this form class, label 1 has a text called label 1, which you can find here at the properties window. So the text is what is displayed on the label. It is not the actual name. The actual name is called label 1. I know it sounds the same, but be careful when you're trying to change the text. Change the text when you intend to change what appears on the what is shown as the appearance. Do not change the name of the control when you intend to change the text. That can be a very big error, and it will be very, very confusing. Okay, so whatever appears is a text. Whatever the name has been assigned to it is the name. And I give an example. Whatever name you bear or you enter, like Samgelisiwe, like Lutando, that's your name. I don't think you go around displaying that name on your forehead. All right. So it is your name. People know it as your name. Okay. But text will be maybe if you place something on your forehead, or maybe like a tattoo on your forehead to say South Africa, or to say I love rugby. So if that is what is placed on your forehead, then in this case we'll see it as a text property, what is publicly seen by the user. All right, so that's how you can also understand the differences. So if I want to call you by your name, I will call you by your name. If I want to see what you're showing on the form, then I will look at the text property. So take note of that. So look for the text property in the properties area at the bottom right of the screen and change the value to hi, my name is Dash. So let's look at the text property. So we click on the label that we just created. Look for the text property on the properties window here and change this to hi, my name. Okay, let me write the way it has been written here. So it's gonna be hi. And then you just click on the form again, and as you can see, it has changed the text property to hi, my name is ellipsis dot dot dot. Okay. Then the next instruction says create a text box in a similar fashion, but do not change the text property. Create a text box. You come here, drag text box here. You can make this bigger by expanding it. You can move this to be somewhere in the center just to make it arranged nicely. Okay, let me see if there's a way I can zoom this in to make it bigger. I don't want full screen. I still want to see my instructions by the left. Okay, I'll keep checking how to do that. All right, but for now, we're just concentrating on creating the controls on the form. So now we have a text box. As you can see, the text box has a name called text box 1, and the text in the text box is blank, like there is nothing showing in the text box. Okay, that's why if you're looking for the text property here, you'll see that it's blank. Okay, so the text property is blank, so leave it like that. Create a text box, but do not change the text property. So leave the text property as blank. So that's why the text box here is also blank. Now create a button below the text box and change the text property to say my name. So we have been told to create a button. Let's go to our toolbox and look for button. You drag the button here, you drop. All right. And then we change the text property to say my name. So click on the button, come to the text property and type say my name. Say my mark. Come back here, you click on this. If you see like it's showing like this, that means the button is too small for the text, so you can expand that button. Okay, just drag it to expand it. So we have our label showing hi, my name is this. We have our text box currently blank. We have our button saying say my name. Okay, so your form should look similar to what you have on the screen. Any questions so far? Any questions so far? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Zani. So moving forward, to assign names to the objects that you create, go to the properties area and change the values of the name property. So we have changed the text property, but if you want to change the name property, go to the properties window at the bottom right corner of the Visual Studio, and then you change the name property to whatever you want. That is if you want to change the name property, the name that has been assigned to the label or to the object or to the control. You can decide to change it to something that to be easier for you to remember. But by default, the name of the first label will be called label 1. If there's another label you add, it will be called label 2. If there's another label after that, it will be called label 3. The first text box will be called text box 1. If you add another text box to the form, it will be called text box 2. If you add another one, it will be called text box 3. The same thing with the button. The first button will be button 1. If there's a new button that you add, it will be called button 2, and like that and like that. But you can decide to change this name to something that's to be easier for you to remember or to refer to in your program. Okay, so that's one important thing about the name properties. Okay, so instruction 7 says go to the programming area or coding area by double clicking on the button you created. Okay, by double clicking on the button you created. So we are in the design window now. As you can see here, this is the design. Now we want to go to the code window or the code view. In the previous practical session, I told you that as it is now, you have only designed the interface, what you want your user to see, the controls that should be on the interface, how the user will control the application. That's all we've been doing. But now we need to instruct those controls to perform certain actions when the user does this or does that. And that is where the codes come in. So the Visual Basic Codes, the window for the Visual Basic Codes can be accessed by double-clicking on that control that you want to program. So in this case, we want to program the button. Remember, this is the button. If you run this, let me just try to run this. If you click on the Start button up there, that's to run the program. So it's running. We'll wait for it to pop up on the screen. Okay, there you go. It has popped up right here. So this is your application. Whatever I'm moving around now is the application that you have created. Okay, so currently your application, the button is doing nothing. So I'm clicking the button now. I'm clicking the button, but it's not doing anything. Why? Because we have not programmed it. So we need to specify what it should do using VB codes. Okay, so now we are going to tell the system what to do when a user clicks on the button, say my name. So let me close this. So I've closed the application. Now let's go to instruction 8. Enter the following code below into the programming area. Remember, to go to the programming area, you need to double click on that control. You double click on it and it takes you to the programming area. So I'm just going to double click on this button. Why? Because the button is what I want the user to click on in order to do something. So in this case, I'm double clicking on the button. Okay, so I'm just going to reduce this because I don't really need them for now. And the toolbox, in this case, I can auto hide it because I need more space. The solution explorer, I don't really need this, so I can auto hide this as well. Okay, the properties, for now, let me auto hide it. I can always come back to this if I need them. I just need more space on the screen. All right, so now we are within the programming area of the button. So the class in which we are typing all this, remember, we said an object is an instance of a class, and a class is like a template or a blueprint for creating many objects. So in this case, our form 1, which is this form, acts as our class in which we have these different objects, which is the label, the text box, and the button. So one of the objects that we are working on now is the button. Remember, I double clicked on the button and it brought me right here. So this has been written within the form class. Okay, so whatever you want to type will go in between the private sub and the end sub. Okay, so here you type the following code: message box.show textbox1.text, comma, your name is this. Okay, so I'm just going to type that as it is in the document. So I go message box. Remember, I told you of the ways you can show output to the user is by using a message box. Okay, so message box dot show tells you that's the method. Remember when we talked about the properties and methods. So the method dot show displays a message box with a specified text. Okay, and if you notice, when I clicked on the dot here, it gave me different options. Okay, so we are looking at the show method. And if you notice also, the methods have a different color, the properties have a different color, but I think you'll notice that later on. Okay, so now you just double click on show, and then in this case, you open the parentheses, and then you type text box. Put a comma, your name is dash dash dash. dot dot dot, and that will be the end of that line. So what we have done is, within this button, we have programmed the button saying when the user clicks on the button, we want them to display the content of text box 1. The text content of text box 1 should be displayed in the message box. Okay, so the message box is a tool that shows, in this case, that can be used for showing output. Okay, and in this case, you can see there are two sides, or should I say, two different arguments in this message box. So the first argument here, text box 1.text, shows you the actual content of your text box, whatever has been entered into this text box, the text property. So the text box 1.text here is the property of text box 1. Okay, so here text box 1 is obviously blank. So text box 1.text here is blank, there is nothing there. But when we run the program and then the user enters something into text box 1, whatever the user enters will be taken as text. And then once it is taken as text, the message box will now show that text. So it's message box.show text box 1.text. Okay, you'll get it when I run the program. And then your name is, this is what appears in the title bar. It's displayed in the title bar of the message box. Okay, let me show you an example of a message box. Okay, so this is a message box. As you can see here, there is no title bar here. Okay, I believe by now you know what I mean by title bar. So the title bar will show somewhere here, okay, of the dialog box. So all I've done so far is just to enter this code, as you can see here, into this area of the button. Remember, I got to this area by double clicking on the button, and then it brought me to this programming area. So all I've done is message box.show, open brackets, text box 1.text, comma, your name is, put this in inverted commas, close the parentheses, and then we're going to run the program. Remember, the your name is, this is optional. So even if you don't put this, it will run, but the difference is there will not be anything displayed in your title bar. But I can just show you the difference now. So let us go ahead to run the program. So it says click the start button to run your program. So the start button is up here. Click that, and if everything is fine, your program should run. As you can see here, it's running. I'm just dragging it to the side here. This is the program. Now, if I click say my name, you see it's blank. Why is it blank? Because currently there is nothing in text box 1. But if I type something here, like Victor, and I say my name, you say Victor. It brings out the input inside the text box 1, which is now the text input, and displays it in the message box. So this is a message box. The title bar of this message box, as you can see, shows your name is, just like we typed it in the code view. And then this Victor is only showing the content of my text box 1 as I have typed it. Okay, let's try to change this to, let's say ISTN equal 2. If I click say my name, all it does is it shows you the content of the text box 1, which is ISTN practical 2. Okay, let me close this. As I said, it is not compulsory to have this other part. So if you remove this, your name is, let's remove this, remove the comma as well, and just have message box.show text box 1.text. I'm going to run this and we'll see what happens now. So it's running here. Okay, it's running right here. So now, hi, my name is, so if you enter anything again, let's say let's say Victor again. Say my name, it only shows Victor. As you can see, there is nothing showing in the title bar. So that should tell you that the second part of that argument, or the second argument in that parenthesis, is just to show you that this parameter that contains the title bar has not been written, but it still shows you, it gives you the output of whatever input you have typed into your text box 1. Any questions? Any questions? So we have tried to use a text box as an input and a message box as output. Okay, that's what we've been doing so far. Any questions? Feel free to ask your question. The chat section is open. You can use your microphone as well. Okay, can someone tell me how to do this? Currently, my firm, you see on this screen here, the form shows my first project. The title bar of this form shows my first project. What do I need to do if I want to make my own to also show my first project? Who can tell me? Remember, whatever we have on this screen in the practical document on the left is what we are trying to achieve on the interface here on the right of Visual Studio. So we have, hi, my name is this, we have text box, we have button. So my question is, I want to have this title bar to be my first project. As you can see here, my first project. So how do I do that? If I want this one also to have my first project right here, instead of form 1, I want it to be my first project. Can someone just tell me how you think you would do that? Quickly, anyone who is willing to contribute can do so in the next 1 minute. Okay, I have a contribution from the chat section. Double click on the text and edit. Okay, that's not, that wouldn't work because it is not just a text, it is a control that needs to be edited. So the form is not just something you can double click on and edit the contents like that, but there is a particular place of the form that you need to go to be able to change the contents of the form or the properties of the form. Stembele says maybe click on the yellow part written form and edit. Okay. I think it's the same response I'm gonna give you. Samgiliziwe says double click on form 1. Okay, double clicking on form 1 doesn't help because it only brings me into the code or programming area. So that's not the best way to do that. As I said, what you want to change is the text. So you go to the properties window of that, whatever you've selected. Either it is a label or a text box or a button, but in this case, we have selected form. So how do you know if form 1 has been selected? You can notice that these anchors that can be used to drag, they are showing by the edge of the form. It tells you that form 1 is currently selected. If I select text box, you can see the anchors showing you that this is currently selected. Button shows you that this is currently selected. So form 1 is currently selected. You go to the properties window, properties of form 1, and then you look for the text property. They should be, if you put them in alphabetical order, Then you should notice that they are in text. Sorry, they are in the text. Obviously, is going to be letter T, and it's going to be after S. So just look at the text property of form 1. As you can see, currently it is written as form 1. Just change that to my first project. And if you click on form 1, you should see that it changes to my first project up here. Okay. Thank you for your contributions, though. Tandazani, Samgelisiwe, Stembile, thank you. So let's move on to the next page, which is, okay, we've done this page already. Now let's move on to instruction number 11. Instruction 11. Let's move on to instruction 11. Instruction 11 says, remove the message box that show instruction that you typed earlier and replace it with the following. Text box 1.text equal to enter your name here. If your name is Tom, then you replace with text box 1.text equal to Tom. So this equal to is used to assign. It's used to assign values to objects or to controls or to methods or to properties. The equal to sign here is used to assign. So when you see the equal to, it means you are saying assign or store the value on the right into whatever is on the left. Take note of that. Store whatever you've typed here on the right. So I'm saying now on the right because this equal to, looking at it on the screen, just like you're looking at it, on your own left-hand side, you have text box 1.text, and on the right-hand side of the equal sign, you have whatever this value is. So I'm saying, remember the arrangement, you use it to assign whatever is on the right to whatever is on the left. So in some cases, it can be you assigning or allocating a value on the right to a variable on the left. It can be you assigning a value on the right to a property or to a method or to whatever it is on the left. Okay, so take note of that. So it's an assignment operator. So in this case, we've been told to remove the message box to show instruction. So let's go back to form 1. Form 1, we had message box that show. We have been told to remove that. So I'm deleting that. Okay. I've removed that. Okay. Can come down here and then replace it with the following. Text box 1.text equals this, but here you change it to your name. So I'm going to type text box 1.text is equal to Victor. Okay, that's what I've done. I've removed the message box. Remember, we are still within the button programming area. I double click on button, we are still within the button programming area. So in this case, when I run the program and I click on the button, it displays not in a message box, but in the text box. If you notice, we removed the message box dot show. So that tool will not be used to display our output. But what will be used now is the text box. Let me close this and go back to the code. So here, within the button, you are saying when the user clicks on this button, okay, button 1_click, okay. So this handles when button 1 is clicked. So when the user clicks on that button that we have in our form, do this, which means assign this text called Victor to the text property of text box 1. That is exactly what has happened. We wrote Victor in inverted commas? Can someone tell me the reason for doing that? Because who wants to complete that statement? Victor has been written and surrounded by quotation marks or inverted commas here. Why? Anyone? 10 seconds to contribute. 10 seconds to contribute. 8, 7, 6, 5. Anyone? Okay, so the Victor has been written here because it's a string. So when you're writing a string, you surround with quotation marks. When you're writing a string or a text, you surround with quotation marks. If you do not surround with quotation marks and you leave it like this, then you see that it underlines it because it thinks it's a variable and it's telling you that it is not declared. So if it is a text or a string supplied by the user, then you surround with quotation marks and then there shouldn't be any errors. Why? Because our text box 1 originally is meant to accept text strings. Originally, the text box 1 object or control accepts string values, text values, not even numbers. You can type the number 3, but the text box 1 would still treat it as a text. I think we'll see that in the next page or the next activity in our practical today. Okay, so ideally, the text box 1 takes in string values. That's why it's called a text box. It's not a number box, it's a text box. So it should take in text values, string values by default. But later on, we'll see how we can convert the content of a text box from whatever value it is to decimal, double, integers, to numbers, so that we can use them for mathematical calculations. But before then, I need you to understand what is happening here. This is written within the button. When the user clicks on this button, the property of this text box, which is text box 1 dot text, remember, text box 1 is the object. So forget about everything else for now. The object is text box 1. Now, if you want to determine its property or its method, then you type the dot followed by the property or followed by the method. In this case, we are using the property text. So text box 1 dot text is equal to Victor, which is the string value, means that when I click on the button, assign this Victor, remember, assign what is on the right to what is on the left. So it assigns, let me click on the start button again. It assigns the value already stored here. So even if you try to type in, let me try to type in ISTN and I click say my name, you see what happens? It changes whatever was inside to whatever the button has inside it. So if I change this again, let me call it practical 2. I've typed in manually, I have typed in practical 2 into the text box. Okay, but within the button, there has not been a chance to accept input. The button does not give the user a chance to enter any input. The button already has its own value that it wants to assign to that text box, regardless of what is there. That's why if you click on this, it changes it to Victor, which is what was coded in the programming area of that button. And I'm going to close the application now, and the application stops running. Remember, when you start the application, it's running here. So if you want to make any changes to your code, remember to first end the application or you stop debugging here, and then you can make changes to your codes or to your interface. All right, so that is the end of instructions 11 and 12. All we did was to remove the previous code, which is this one, and replaced it with this one, and then you change the name to whatever name that applies to you. Any questions? Okay, all seems to be well and good. I can't see any questions. Any questions? You can drop them in the chat section. You can speak to the microphone. And if it's a question for later, you can send them to my email address. All right, so this is the next page of the document, which is page 3. So page 3 says remove the text box 1.text instruction and replace it with the following. So we've been told, still within the button programming area, we want to remove this and replace with this. Okay, so I'm going to type this into the programming area. Text box 1 text equal to input the name here, then the comma comes after that. We have another argument that says your name, that Jacob, close that. Okay, so whatever was written here, I have retyped here. Okay, so we have a new tool here. The control that we have here is an input box, and as you can see, there's a tooltip that shows you what an input box does. It displays a prompt in a dialog box, waits for the user to input text or click a button, and then returns a string containing the contents of the text box. So the input box, let me see if there's a screenshot. Oh yeah, I think I showed you a screenshot earlier. Yeah, this is an example of an input box. Let me just make this. Okay, I hope it's a bit bigger now. Okay, so this is an example of an input box here. So an input box comes like this. It comes with its own text box. This that looks like a text box, but it's an input box. In this case, it shows within a dialog box. So you type in whatever value here, and then we have 4 arguments of that input. In this case, we have 3 arguments. The first one, enter your name here, is what will be displayed here. Okay, and then that is the most important part. The others are just, optional. The one that says your name please is what appears at the title here, and the one that says Jacob is the default value that is shown here. Okay, don't worry, when I run the program I will explain again what I mean by this. Okay, so let me, all right, so here, as you can see, remove the text box 1, the text instruction, and we've done that. So here, remember again, whatever, when you see the equal symbol, you're saying whatever is on the right hand side, assign it to whatever is on the left hand side of the equal to symbol. So in this case, whatever is on the right hand side is the input box, and then the left hand side is the text box 1.text. So you assign whatever has been entered here, assign it as the text property of text box 1.text. So the button will display whatever was entered here as the text of text box 1. I hope that makes sense. Okay, so let's run the program. And there it is. Okay, I've dragged it to the center. So this is the program here. Okay, I don't need this for now. I don't need this for now. Here's my program here. Yeah, so this is the program. So if I click on this button, what pops up is what? An input box. I'll do that again. Remember, this is our program. It's still our, this is our interface. This is our interface. So whatever you expect to see, what you designed was a label, a text box, and a button. When I run this program by clicking the start button, obviously you have it here. This is the application here, running here. This one I'm moving about. So you can see it's similar. It's the same thing with what we have in our interface. Those are the objects, the controls, the tools are still showing up like that. But now, when you click on the button, it pops up another dialog box. That dialog box is the input box that was specified in our programming area. The input box is different from the message box, and I can see, and as you can see, that it is different because it has something like a text box of its own. It has two options, OK and cancel. It has sort of like a message for the user here. It has a title bar here. All right, so let me put this here so I can use it to explain the code again. So this is the input box. I just want to use it to explain the code. So in the input box, enter your name here, which the first argument is the one that shows here as the main message of the input box. It shows here, all right? And then your name, please, shows as the title of the input box. The title shows in the title bar. And the Jacob, which is someone's name, also a string, shows as a default value. Default, it means it is preloaded. You can always delete that to change it to whatever you want. But Jacob is what just automatically appears there. So as I said, you can, if you want to, you can remove all these extras. It's still going to run. So for example, let me close this program. Let me close this program. If I remove this two, let me start from here. If I just remove everything here, I remove everything here and I run by clicking the start button, my program opens up. If I click the button, you see it still appears. Then enter your name here still shows here, but nothing shows in this default value of the input box because we've removed it here. And then in the title bar, the title doesn't show. It only brings back the title of the solution, which is programming practical _2, which is, remember, that's the name of our solution that I created earlier. So here, it's still going to work, obviously, but having those initial values gives it extra information. So I'm just going to bring it back. But I was telling you that it is not really, it's not the most important thing, but it gives you extra information or gives the user extra information, which is also quite helpful. So when I start this, it pops up the application. When I click on the button, it pops up the input box. Now, if I just click on OK, you see it says, "Hi, my name is Jacob." Why? Because remember here, whatever was entered into the input box, when you click on OK, it will automatically be assigned to the whatever is on the left. In this case, text box 1. So that's why Jacob is showing in text box 1. So I have to close this again. If I start this, say my name, I click on the button, and then I type Victor. I type Victor, and I click OK. So now my input box contains Victor Fanuel, and then I click OK, and then it sends it to the, text box 1. If you click on say my name again, it opens up this box. Whatever is in this box is automatically used to replace the text box. If I click on the button again, I change it to Victor. Whatever is in that box changes. So that's what happens. So if you mistakenly change this and then you click on the button, whatever you type in the button is what is going to appear later in the text box. So you must understand when to use what type of input. So what we have done so far is just to show how we can use the input box to accept input from users and to display it in the text box 1. Any questions? Remember, once again, this needs constant practice. These programming topics need you to constantly practice the codes as soon as you have the opportunity to do so. It is not one of those topics where you rely on reading a lot of notes and cramming concepts. That will not be very helpful going forward. Your knowledge will be tested practically, so you need to know these practical ways of doing it. And of course, you can always go back to the videos that are uploaded on Moodle to rewatch these sessions. Any questions before we move on to the last thing for today, which is we'll create a simple calculator that can add two numbers or subtract two numbers, or multiply two numbers or subtract one number from the other. That's the next thing we want to do. But before that, I'll just give you 30 seconds to ask your questions. All right, no questions. So let's continue. Well, okay. Before going to exercise 2, let's see what instruction 14 says. Run your program and then click on the button and enter a name on the input box. We've done that. Click on the OK button and whatever value was captured in the input box is then displayed in the text box. Okay, so we've done that. So instead of using a text box, you can also place the name you enter into a label. So this is trying to show you that instead of using this text box to display my name, I can also use a label to display my name. So let's add a new label to this form. Okay, I just added a new label. Let me just put it somewhere here and say, so this is label 2, this is label 1. Label 2, I can just leave it. Okay, I can change the text to blank. Hopefully you still remember that it's there. I'm just going to change the text to blank. Okay, but the label is still there, but I just change the text to blank so that when I run it, I don't want anything to be showing there. Okay, so here I want to go back to my code. Now, instead of assigning the input, whatever I enter the input box, I want it to show in the label. So my label, the name of my label is what? Let's check the name property. Okay, that's the issue now with not assigning. So let me just leave it like this so that it can be visible. Let me say your name goes here, or let me say dash. Let me change the properties to something that you can see so that, yeah, so I've changed it to dash just so that we can be able to see something on the screen. Okay, I've changed this to dash. Hi, my name is Dash. Okay, so the name of this label, remember, the name of this label is label 2, but the text property I've changed it to dash. Okay, so now I want label 2 to show the output of my name instead of the text box 1. So in the code area, instead of having text box 1.text, then all you need to do is just to change the label, change it to label 2. I just changed text box 1, I changed it to label 2. So I removed it from text box 1, I changed it to label 2. Let's see how that works. So let me run the program. As you can see here, my interface now has a dash. It has a dash. So hi, my name is. Click on this button. Type something into the toolbox. Into the input box. Victor Fanera. If I click on OK, you can see instead of showing in the text box, it shows where? On the label. That is because I have changed the output from the text box 1. I've changed it to the new label 2 that I just created now. All I'm just changing there is the text property. So that's one way you can also change the output or whatever handles the output of your application. So I'm just going to close that. Now we are moving to exercise 2. Exercise 2 is adding two numbers together. For this exercise, you need to start a new project. So let me save everything that I've been doing here. File, save all. Now file, new project. And then it says here, name the project Prac 1 exercise 2. So I'll change this to Prac 1. I wait for my new project. So I have a new project here called Prac 1 exercise 2. So whatever we were doing earlier, we're done with that. Now we have a new project. And that's why you see the form application window here is blank. There is nothing here. The name is still default. So what we need here is to create this interface. Remember, the first thing is you want to drag and drop all the controls to the form. Okay, so let's first create the interface. This form, we want to change the text of this title to calculator, as you can see here, calculator. So to do that, you click on the form, click on it. Once it's selected, you see this anchors here. Then you go to the properties window, you select the text property, you change to calculator, you click on the form again, and then the name has changed to calculator. Okay, the next thing is we need to have 3 labels, 3 text boxes, 1 button for now. 3 labels, 3 text boxes, and 1 button. So let me go ahead and do that quickly. So the first one is 1 label. It's right there on the screen. Then let me drag another label, and then let me drag another label. So I have 3 labels. Arrange them like this. Then I need 3 text boxes. So the first text box, just drag here. The second text box, I drag. The third text box, I drag and drop. Okay. Can decide to move this closer to the other ones here. Okay, you can use the control button to do that. So select the first text box, hold down the control button, and then select the others. So it moves everything at the same time. Okay, I'm just trying to make it look neat a bit. Okay, so we have 3 labels, 3 text boxes. Now I need 1 button. 1 button right here. Drag and drop somewhere here. All right, so all I've done is just to create the interface that you see on the screen. I've just tried to create the interface. Okay, that's what I've done so far. We have not entered any codes into the programming areas of the button yet. Okay. So now, instruction 3 says, go to name in the property window, not text. Of course, I've told you the difference between these two. Go to the name in the property window and rename the 3 text boxes to box 1, box 2, and box 3. We are renaming the text boxes. So if I click on the first text box, I go to the name property, name. Let's look for name. It's up here, the name property. Unfortunately, you won't see it under as a letter N because it starts with a bracket or the parenthesis. So it's usually up here. If it's in alphabetical order, it usually shows up here. So the name property is text box 1. We have been told to change it to what? Box 1. Let's change this to box 1. And then the second one, we change the name property to what? Box 2. And then the third one, we change the name property to box 3. Be careful not to change the text property when you mean to change the name property. Okay, that's a very big error. So we have the names as box 1, box 2, and box 3. Now, go to text in the property window and rename the 3 labels to box 1, box 2, and answer, just like you see here. We want the labels to be named accordingly: box 1, box 2, and answer. So this is just a text property. So you click on this label 1, you go to the properties, you look for the text property, and you change it to box 1, and then label 2, you change it to box 2, and then label 3, you change it to answer. And then you have it, and then the button, you change it to a plus symbol, as you can see here. Button, click on properties, changes to plus symbol. Just look for the plus on your keyboard. That's the shift button and the plus. And then there you have it. Okay, so that's how we've done so far. And now we are currently at line number 6 of page 3. We are at line number 6 of page 3. So number 6 says double click on the button and type the following into the coding area of the button. Now we want to add VB codes to the button to make our form work or function properly. So if you double click this button, it takes you to the programming area, and then type in the following: box3.text. Remember, now it's showing box 3 because we have renamed it from text box to box. Okay, so box3.text here is talking about this one. Box2.text is this one. Box 1 is this one. The labels, of course, you can see the text of the labels are displayed, but the names of these ones have been changed to box 1, box 2, and box 3 respectively. Okay, so in the coding area, we now type box 3 dot equal to box 1 dot text plus box 2 dot text. That's what we've done. So we are attempting to add the content of box 1 dot text to the content of box 2 dot text, and then assign whatever value we get to the left, which is box 3 dot text. That's what we are intending to do here. Okay, so now let's run our program. If you run your program, you click on the start button. So the program runs here, and then let's enter the values 5 and 6 as the instruction says. So in box 1, enter 5, in box 2, enter 6, and the answer is 5, 6. Is this the output that we require? No. When we add 5 and 6, our intention in this case was not to get 5, 6, but it was to get 11, which is 5 plus 6. So can someone tell me what happened here? Why are we getting 5, 6 instead of 5 plus 6, which is 11? Anyone? If you have been following, I believe you can be able to understand why this is happening. Can someone tell me why we have obtained 5, 6 instead of the result of 5 plus 6? Anyone? Okay. Still waiting. I believe someone is typing something, or someone is trying to speak to the microphone. I'll just give you 10 seconds to finish that. Why
Is
do
it
we?
because maybe we didn't put the inverted commas?
Okay, but we do not want to put inverted commas because remember, we want numbers to be added, and when you put inverted commas, they become text. So we
Oh,
actually want numbers to be added together. We don't want text. So we have correctly not used the inverted commas because we want them to be numbers. But unfortunately, it's showing as text. Why? That is because the text box one, as I told you earlier, automatically accepts inputs as text or as strings. I said earlier, it's a text box. So it treats anything inside it as a text, even though we have typed it as a number. So in its own automatic and default way, it converts it to a string or to a text. So whatever file we have written here, it sees it as a text. Whatever 6 we have written here, it sees it as another text. And then when we click on this button, it gives 5, 6. So it just joined the two texts together in what is called concatenation. It's just joined it together. So how do you solve this issue? So to solve this issue, you have to add another function that converts the content of text box into the number that you desire. Again, I said the text box automatically treats whatever is typed into them as text or as string. But if your intention is to use that thing as a number, then you have to convert you have to tell that text box that whatever comes inside you, I want you to convert it to a particular number before you now use it for calculations. So you have to do that to make it see it as a number and not as a text. Okay, so to do that, I'm in line number 8 of page 3. To do that, you now change this code from box3.text. You now add the function called convert dot to decimal. And you put the box1.text in parentheses. So this function converts dot to decimal. It converts whatever is inside that box1.text. It converts it to an equivalent decimal number. So how do you type it? You start by typing convert dot to decimal. Then in the brackets, you now write box1.text. So whatever is here is going to act on box1.text. Okay? Whatever is there is going to act on box1.text. So convert dot to decimal box1.text. There are other ways of doing this, which I'm sure you would find out by the time you start doing this on your own. But one way is by typing it this way. Convert, so it's like you're applying this function to this box1.text. So the function acts on the content of box1.text, and then now we do the same thing for box2.text and say convert dot to decimal, open brackets, box2.text, and close brackets. So same thing here, it converts whatever content of this box2.text to decimal. And then once it has converted these two, then it can now add them as numbers, because the decimal is an example of a number data type. It's a data type that accepts that is used for numbers. Okay, then whatever you have there will now be added as numbers and assigned to box3.text, which is the one on the left. So By changing this, I'm going to rerun this program by clicking on the start button. And then here, I'm going to type 5 and I'm going to type 6. So as I've typed 5, it has automatically converted the 5 from the text that it thinks it is to a decimal. And the 6 in box 2 has now automatically been converted from the text to a decimal. So those decimals are numbers, are data types for numbers. Now, if I click on this button, it's supposed to add the content of box 1 and content of box 2, and it should give me 11. So that is why now we have 11 displayed in the answer box. And you can also convert from strings to numbers, or using dots to decimal, or to integer, or to double. So any of these data types can also can also be treated as numbers. Any questions? It is normal for you to feel a little bit confused, especially if it's your first time of, working with the VB codes. So you are welcome to ask your questions. Okay, let's test another value. Let's test 10. 6 plus 8 should give us 14. So our program is running correctly now. So I'm going to close the program. Now we have created a button to add. So what this instruction says is add 2 more buttons that will allow the multiplication and subtraction of 2 numbers. So all you need to do is first create your interface by adding 1 more button for multiplication and 1 more button for subtraction. So in this case, you can just change this to you can just type the X here to show that it's for multiplication, and then this subtraction, you can just change this to change the properties to the subtraction symbol, which is a dash. Okay, that's a bit tiny, but let me just okay, well, I think I just have to use it like that. Or let me just type subtract. Okay, so if I run this program, okay, we need to code the buttons first if I run the program. So now we've only coded this one for the addition. So for the multiplication, all you need to do is you can even copy this if you want. You can copy this from here to save you time, paste it here, and then change this from plus, okay, sorry, to times. This for the multiplication. So for the times, use the asterisk and not the X symbol, okay? And then for the subtract, you can copy the same code and paste it here and then change this to minus. So all I've done is just change their operators from plus to times using the asterisk, and then I've changed this to minus. So the code for this is found within the plus symbol. The code for this is found within the times button, and the code for this is found within the subtract button. So if I run this and I test the buttons, our calculator should be able to give us correct answers. So let me test. 15 and 10, if we add them together, it should give us 25. That's correct. If we multiply them, it should give us 150. That's correct. And if we subtract, it should give us 5. So 15 minus 10 is 5. 15 times 10 is 150. 15 plus 10 is 25. And that's the end of the program. And that also brings us to the end of our practical session today. Okay, remember to save your work. And if you have any further questions, feel free to drop me an email. Drop your student numbers and the campus you belong to before you leave. And we shall meet again some other time. Please make sure you practice this on your own. Do not leave it to the last hour so that it won't be overwhelming. Build on your knowledge after every session. That's the best way you can be able to understand these concepts. Enjoy the rest of your day.